Okay, welcome back to the show. Tonight we're talking about extreme sports. Why do so many people take part in such dangerous activities? Where's the fun in putting yourself at such risk? Maybe our next caller can help answer some of these burning questions. Paul, what dangerous sport do you do and why?
I'm into climbing, especially free climbing.
When did you first get into climbing?
When I was 4 years old, my dad took me walking in the foothills of the Alps. I can still remember the snow crunching under our feet as we walked together. We always had a lot of fun, but I didn't really get into climbing until I was 17. I remember standing in front of a really steep rock face and thinking, can I do this?
When did you move on to free climbing?
Probably about 10 years later. By that point, I'd become a pretty good climber and wanted a new challenge. I love the excitement, fear and challenge of it. And my father thought it was a brilliant idea because he'd been a good climber as well, but my mother was terrified.
Have you ever had any accidents?
Well, I've had lots of terrifying moments. Once I was high up the side of a mountain in Argentina when the wind started to pick up. It was too dangerous to climb down, so I just had to hold on and wait. In some places, there are also these tiny wooden bridges attached to the side of the mountain to help you get from one ledge to another. Sometimes the wood groans under your weight, which can be a bit scary, but so far none have ever actually broken.
Okay, so what's the most dangerous thing that's ever happened to you?
Well, a few years ago I was in South Africa with a few of my friends and we'd nearly finished the first part of an all-day climb. I was just pulling myself up when I saw a huge snake right in front of me. I am terrified of snakes, so I just froze as it started to hiss and arch backwards. I waited for another few minutes, not moving, and then it just seemed to get bored and slithered back into a crack in the rock. It was the most terrifying moment ever, and it had nothing to do with climbing.
Thanks for calling in, Paul. Hope you don't meet any more snakes on your climbs. We have our second caller, Hayley, with us now. Hayley, what dangerous sport are you into?
Potholing.
What, climbing through caves and things?
Yeah, that's right. It's great fun, actually.
Not sure I'd enjoy it. Anyway, how long have you been potholing for?
I first got into potholing at university. There was a climbing and caving society that I joined. I had done a lot of climbing, but I'd never done any potholing before. It was amazing.
How does it compare to climbing?
With climbing, you can see a lot of the route in front of you. Potholing is so dark and the spaces can be really small, so it's difficult to plan your next move. Often you start at the entrance to a cave and simply walk in, but within a few hundred metres you have crawled on your belly, swum underwater and squeezed your body through tiny gaps. The challenges are just so much more varied.
And is it a dangerous sport?
It's more dangerous than it sounds. You can suffer from a lack of oxygen or too much carbon dioxide. You can get trapped. You can drown when there's a sudden storm. You can even fall to your death climbing. There are literally hundreds of ways you can die.
Sounds frightening. What was your most terrifying experience?
Once I got lost when I was deep underground in Mexico. It can be silent for just a few minutes and all you can hear is water trickling around you. It's actually quite worrying because you have no maps and no way of communicating with people outside and getting help. Luckily, we managed to get back out the way we had come. By then, we had been lost underground for several hours. It was terrifying and took me weeks to get over.
Thank you, Hayley. I have to say, potholing sounds terrifying. So, now on to our last caller, Lee. Good evening, Lee.
Good evening.
So, Lee, what extreme sport are you into?
I'm a free runner.
Okay, so when did you first get into it?
It started from when I was a child. I used to do gymnastics when I was young, so I was always into climbing and jumping. Then a friend at school showed me a video of a group of people free running, and I thought, why not give it a try?
What do you enjoy most about free running?
Well, it makes you look at cities in different ways to other people. People often don't even look up when they walk around a city. They focus on everything at eye level: shops, people, cars. You actually really appreciate the architecture more from up high. Every city is a new physical challenge. I get excited and my adrenaline starts pumping.
How dangerous is free running?
It can be very dangerous. You need to be very aware of your own ability and try not to push yourself too hard. Unfortunately, because it is competitive, people are always pushing themselves to do more and more dangerous things. I have broken a lot of bones. Once, when I jumped between two buildings, I slipped and fell 20 meters. Luckily, I didn't break anything. This other time, though, I fell just a couple of meters and I broke my ankle. I can still hear my ankle snap as I landed. It was so painful.
Oh, wow, that sounds horrible. Anyway, thanks for joining us, Lee. OK, listeners, we're just going to a short commercial break before we take our next caller.
Well, a few years ago I was in South Africa with a few of my friends and we'd nearly finished the first part of an all-day climb. I was just pulling myself up when I saw a huge snake right in front of me. I am terrified of snakes, so I just froze as it started to hiss and arch backwards. I waited for another few minutes, not moving, and then it just seemed to get bored and slithered back into a crack in the rock. It was the most terrifying moment ever, and it had nothing to do with climbing. Well, a few years ago I was in South Africa with a few of my friends and we'd nearly finished the first part of an all-day climb. I was just pulling myself up when I saw a huge snake right in front of me. I am terrified of snakes, so I just froze as it started to hiss and arch backwards. I waited for another few minutes, not moving, and then it just seemed to get bored and slithered back into a crack in the rock. It was the most terrifying moment ever, and it had nothing to do with climbing.
So a few months ago I was staying at my parents' house when this strange thing happened. We were all enjoying the warmth of the crackling fire as the trees creaked in the wind outside. Suddenly we heard glass smashing upstairs and something heavy banged on the floor. We rushed upstairs to find that a huge branch had crashed through the roof of the house.